To Pakistan now, where the government is ramping up its mass deportations of Afghan refugees. Among those being told to leave are Afghans who worked for the U.S. government before the Taliban takeover in 2021. Many fled to Pakistan, hoping to eventually relocate to the U.S. But President Donald Trump's suspension of the refugee resettlement program means that's no longer an option. Around 15,000 people are now in limbo. DW's Beenish Javed spoke to one family and filed this report.
Kaiwan was just 12 when she came to Pakistan with her family 3 years ago to escape Taliban rule. Since then, Kaiwan has built a life here. She's a talented artist and dreams of becoming a graphic designer. Before the Taliban retook control of Afghanistan in 2021, Kaiwan's father worked with the Afghan police force and later worked in security for an American firm. The family feared that would leave them at the risk of being persecuted by the Taliban. They fled to Pakistan, hoping to move to the US from there through the US refugee admissions program. Now, US President Donald Trump's executive order suspending all refugee admissions to the United States has put Kaiwan's family's fate in doubt.
If we go back to Afghanistan, they will arrest my parents and they will kill them. So obviously, I will have no one in my back and I'll be orphaned. So that's hard for me to go back to Afghanistan, and I cannot even think about it because this is so scary.
Kaiwan goes to a school here for Afghan children funded by a Canadian NGO. But her prospects to stay in Pakistan are also bleak. Pakistan, home to more than 2 million Afghan refugees, is growing impatient with the delays to the relocation programs. Now the government is warning it could deport Afghans like Kaiwan and her family.
We have to go to America because we can also, after school, we cannot continue our education in Pakistan because we cannot go to university, and the deportation in Pakistan have started.
Kaiwan's mother, Zohal, was a children's rights activist in Afghanistan. In Pakistan, she started a small school for Afghan refugee children in her home. She shows me the empty classrooms that until recently were full of Afghan students. Now all her students have either fled to other Pakistani cities or have been deported to Afghanistan.
We're urging America to support Afghan refugees. We're asking them to resume processing our visas, especially for those of us who are facing difficulties in Pakistan. We have a case for resettlement, and we are not a danger to the U.S. If they process our migration cases, we promise that we will consider America as our very own country.
Kaiwan and her family are stuck in an uncertain situation, with an overwhelming feeling that they are not welcome anywhere.
We're very lucky to have our reporter who filed that report, Beenish Javed, here with me in the studio to tell us a little bit more about this family. Beenish, for Kaiwan and her family, can you tell us how the Trump administration's suspension of the U.S. refugee admissions program has affected them and will affect their lives?
So, Claire, not only Kaiwan, but there are thousands of Afghans. They have been devastated by this decision. There are people whose flights were scheduled. There are people who had ended their rental contracts and made all travel arrangements because they had been waiting for 3 long years to finally go to the United States. So it's a devastating news for all of them. And also, on top of that, the host country where they're living, they're also facing this fear and this big concern that even Pakistan will not be able to keep them anymore. So it is a complete uncertain and a very, very difficult situation that these thousands of Afghans in Pakistan are facing.
So truly left in limbo by this decision. What would going back to Afghanistan mean for Kaiwan and her family, or for other Afghans in the same situation?
Kaiwan is 15 years old, and I asked her, if you have to go to Afghanistan, what's your plan? What will you do? And this is something that she told me that she can't imagine. She's so scared of even that thought, because in Afghanistan, she can't even go to school, because any girl older than 12 years old in Afghanistan is not allowed to go to school. In Pakistan, she goes to a school, she takes online graphic designing classes, she's an artist, she has these dreams, and she speaks fluent English, which she picked in Pakistan, so she has a lot of dreams and ambitions. But it's not only her education that will be affected. Her father worked in the force which was fighting the Afghan Taliban just a couple of years ago, also worked as a security staff for an American firm. So the family fears that they will be persecuted if they go back to Afghanistan. And especially they feel sad and hurt because they feel that they sacrificed a lot for the United States, and now the United States is shutting its doors on them.
They help the Americans are being left out to dry here. I'm curious if you could tell me more about the role of the Pakistani government here. You've mentioned that they've been ramping up their efforts to deport Afghans now.
Yes, and Pakistan has publicly said that if these cases, around 16,000 or so Afghans are waiting to hear from the US Embassy. There are more also, a lot of people, like around thousands, who are waiting for resettlement cases in other countries. Pakistan says if their cases are not resolved unofficially by 30th June, Pakistan would start deporting them. Pakistan says that it is, and the reason why Pakistan is doing is because Pakistan blames Afghan Taliban for multiple terrorist attacks that Pakistan is facing. Global Terrorism Index says that Pakistan was the second most impacted country by terrorism last year. We also have a figure, if we can show to our viewers. Just last year, more than 1,000 people in Pakistan were killed in terrorist attacks. Pakistan officially, publicly says that these attacks are being planned in Afghanistan. Afghan Taliban deny these accusations, but there are reports even by the UN that suggest that Afghan Taliban are working with Al-Qaeda and supporting Pakistani militants that are carrying out these attacks. And as a result, Pakistan is sort of punishing these Afghans basically because of the bitterness with the Afghan Taliban.
Really leaving them in such a difficult place. Thank you so much for joining us with this story. That's DW's Beenish Javed here with me.